Hi everyone, welcome back to another live on LinkedIn. I'm Giulia De Mauro, the founder of the IBD Hub and host of the podcast. Today we're going to talk about entrepreneurship put into practice. And I have a guest that is calling from Atlanta, which I will introduce you to very shortly. As usual, I just want to make an introduction about the IBD Hub. The IBD Hub initiative is to help architects and engineers either to start their own business or to scale up their company. So do not hesitate to go on my LinkedIn profile and find out more. So today our guest is Zakeem Nyatasa. Hi, Zakeem. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right. How about you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So today the goal here is to basically give some kind of advice to our architects and engineers who are also trying to start their own business, and that's maybe they're reticent to do so, or they don't know where to start. And since you started Nyatasa Design back in 2018, I thought it would be a great opportunity to ask you a few questions to know how you did it.
Absolutely. I'm always open.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about your company?
Oh, yes, of course I can. I really don't know where to start. But as you stated, I started back in 2018. I'm gonna try to keep this short-winded because I don't like to ramble. But prior to that, I worked for a small architecture firm for around a decade. And I just watched really closely. I paid attention to the things that I liked, the things I disliked. I made
Yeah.
sure that I made great relationships with people. And when it was time, it wasn't as much of a fear. But
Yeah.
um,
Well, I have plenty of questions about that actually. The more we go on, but what kind of projects are you doing right now, and what is a little bit the foundation of your company?
well, right now I work a lot in the commercial space. I've made some great relationships with people who do a lot of commercial construction, tenant build outs, things of that nature. So a lot of retail spaces, restaurants. I do some residential. I just try to make sure that I'm not spread too thin. Um, yeah.
Okay. So when did you know that you wanted to start your own company?
I think I knew that at a very early age. I always didn't like being controlled too much. I like to control my own fate and my own life, but I also understood that I had to gain experience in the field somehow.
Yeah.
So that was always my plan, but I didn't think I would work for that firm as long as I did, actually. At a certain point, I felt trapped because I established so much there and I'd helped them build up so much. Um, just certain things happened in that company that allowed me to leave at a certain point because the owner made some bad decisions, and watching him make those decisions kind of let me know like how I wanted to run my company, but also know that I didn't want somebody else's decisions to affect my life so much.
Yeah.
So I knew I always had a bad taste about working for somebody else after I watched that experience so closely. Um,
One of the main issues that a lot of architects have is that they don't study business while they're doing architecture. So
mm,
they have no notion of how to set up anything or any business notion in general. But I think you had a different experience, if I'm not mistaken.
no, you're not mistaken. I guess to double back to one of your earlier questions, like one of my minor in university was business administration. So I always knew that I kind of wanted to have some type of business acumen as far as being able to run a business because I knew I wanted to have my own firm.
Yeah.
So that helped me. And then once I got in the firm, I give the owner credit because he wasn't afraid to let me sit in certain meetings. And I
Yeah.
was able to hear some of the numbers and how we calculate the fee and the percentages and things like that. And so I was really able
Yeah.
to get a deep dive into it. So I always appreciated that. I think you kind of have to be searching for it, ask questions, be curious. I asked a lot of questions at the firm. I questioned everything we did. Why do we do it this way? Why do we not do it that way? When did you start doing this? Like, so I just
Yeah.
questioned everything so I could get as much information back and my brain could process it and figure out was there a better way or not. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the it also happened to me, like when I was working in my past jobs. My mission was to actually make as many mistakes as possible while being in the company, just to like learn from it and learn it like without any risks at the end of the day. Because the more you make mistakes with your own company, then it is a bigger issue, I think. um I was wondering, like, um if what were the first steps for you to start the company? Like, there's a lot of people, they say, okay, I want to start my company, but I don't know where to start from. Was it like more contacts? Was it more like setting up the physical company? Was it like website?
It's so much. I don't even know where to start. The first thing, you just have to be a doer. At the end of
Yeah.
the day, you have to get up and you have to do. I think the first step was me recognizing that I didn't want to be like my life or my career path to be controlled by anybody else again, because yeah, I know that feeling. And so the first step was, like you said, contacts. I'd worked with that firm for so long that I built some great rapport with certain clients. So I just made sure that I made sure I nurtured those, stayed in contact with them. Um, and for me, it was a little bit happenstance. It was a little bit easier because when my previous firm went under, I was able to be in a position to take some of those clients with me. Beyond that, I think the first step was just getting my paperwork in, LLC, my tax numbers, things of that nature, um, expediting those, paying the extra fee to get them in quickly so that I could establish business. My general liability insurance, company insurance, things of that nature, so that I could, when I'm out on site or I'm visiting a client, if anything happens, we're all covered. So I just had to cross my T's. I did a lot of research late at night and just try to make sure I was on top of everything. It's just about being diligent at the end of the day.
And what was your like biggest fear in a way? Like, I think everyone has one specific fear when they start. Like, I wonder, have one specifically, like, oh, it's just like getting things done that was most worrying. And it's a good question, but like, I think like I'm asking these questions because those are the questions that I get from people I'm coaching or people that I'm working with. They all have fears and they all have difficulties to start. So that's why I'm asking you these questions.
Yes, absolutely. I think for me, my experience eliminated a lot of fear. Like a lot of times people have fear in that position because where they're leaving from or where they're going from seems like a comfortable position. The comfortable position I had completely crumbled, so I didn't have anything to hold on to. It was just like, go do. Or you're going to go put yourself in a position in another firm and be working your butt off for them for another 5 years while they reap all the rewards. At the end of the day, I think that's what can kind of wipe away fear, is that I worked for a firm for 10 years. I started when it was just two of us in the office. By the time we were done, it was 25. So in my mind, it was like, if I put my resume back out there and go work for another firm, I'm going to be building somebody else's dream again on the sweat of my back. And I remember how late I used to work in that office. So for me, the fear was wiped away when I said, if I'm going to work this hard, I'm going to work this hard for myself. If I, like, at the end of the day, if I have some months where it's not as comfortable as I want it to be, I'd rather be doing it for myself than be uncomfortable for years while somebody else is paying me a small percentage of the contracts that we see. So
I completely agree. I can get that. Also, I think like it comes from your entrepreneur side, like, and asking many questions about everything. I think, I always tend to say, like, starting your company is not the same as being employed as an architect. Like not everybody can do it. Like you have to have a certain eager to learn and eager to want to multiply your skills, so that it's not just pure architecture, but it's also like in a way an accumulation of entrepreneurship skills and architecture skills, which is really important. But how did you first? Was there any first obstacle that you got, like when you started it? Like, did you have difficulties to find clients maybe, or like to, you
know? The most difficult part to me is just staying true, like to whatever your belief is or whatever your drive is, your passion is, whatever you're going after. Because as an entrepreneur, not speaking just in architecture, it's a roller coaster. There's waves. You're gonna have clients that come in and you're gonna not have enough time to even answer the phone calls for them. Then you're gonna have a month where you barely get the phone to ring. And so for me, it's just having enough diligence and perseverance through those low times to push through, because there's at any point I could put my resume out. I could go search for a job. I mean, but that was the most difficult part, is just persevering through that. And every time I persevered through it, what was on the other side was far more beautiful. The client that I would get or a phone call that would come in. I think the biggest thing I learned is that the harder you work, like the more things come together around you. You know, the harder I work, the harder it seemed like the man above work. Like when your opportunities present themselves, you have to be ready for them. And if you're not working hard because you're in a slow moment or you're not persevering, opportunity comes and you can't even present the work for it. So that was the biggest thing for me, I guess. I don't want to ramble.
do you feel like more like an entrepreneur or more like an architect?
I feel like I'm right in the middle, and that's really because even when I started my firm, I didn't want to put myself in a hole or pigeonhole myself. I wanted to keep what I'm capable of doing open, because at any point in my life, if I'm not passionate about it, I want to be able to shift, because that's part of what keeps you happy. I say I'm more of an entrepreneur because I think with your own firm, you're going to have to be fluid. This past year, we had a pandemic that's hit us, and I think everybody had to alter themselves. Before the pandemic came, I had a lot of work coming in, a lot of clients. I'm blessed that I still was able to keep a lot of those clients throughout it, but it was slow months. And while those slow months were going on and we weren't doing any commercial work, for me, it was in my head having to recalibrate how I'm going to make this work. So I started designing furniture and doing woodwork and trying to build things and do things of that nature and build up a furniture side of this, because as an architect, we can design anything. That's how our brains are built. So
and you know, I love that you are so resilient. I think that's also part of the entrepreneurship, like always innovate and always adapt to the situation that is happening. So definitely, I'm sure that a lot of people can use that advice, especially right now, whether it's like established companies or people that are starting, like being able to you know, be resilient and change your services according to the demand, like is super important. Just guys, if you have any question for Zach and I, just please just comment as well on LinkedIn or YouTube, wherever you're. Please tell us where you're from. That usually boosts our posts. Please feel free, and we'll take a couple of questions at the end if there is any. But okay, so you told me how you started it, and you know where it comes from. Do you have a little bit an overview or like an opinion of the architecture field, like in terms of, well, we are quite old-fashioned, right, in our field, and I was wondering if this is also your experience, and yeah, what can be improved in a way. I know it's a tough question. Like, I you know, I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm curious to know, like, your opinion about the architecture field and what can be done better by some professionals?
That's a definitely a tough question. I think my experience has been a little bit different than most. To be transparent, I don't see a lot of people that look like me in the field.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when I walked in the rooms, I felt that. Um,
Yeah.
and the field being so dominated by a certain demographic of people,
Yeah.
um, I think definitely affects us. But on the flip side, I think we as a younger generation have to do a better job about questioning the rules that have been established for so long and not just going along with them because people say that's the way it's supposed to go. Um, I think it's going to take time, regardless of how frustrated we all are. I think it's going to take more of us stepping out on our own and establishing our own procedures that we want to run in our company versus what people said we need, how things had to be run for so long. Not only that, I think it's going to take some of these older people, with all due respect, retiring or things of that nature, so that the old perspective or theory can be eliminated to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I also, well, in a smaller scale, of course, but I also feel what you're saying, in terms of, yeah, an international woman in the field is also looked in a certain way. Also, I think, you know, women are also not very much represented in a management position either. But
absolutely.
it can be used as, yeah, your power through it. Like, I mean, when I started, to be honest, like especially in the management position, everyone was looking, and I was international because I was not from the country where I was working from. But I was using it as a way for people to remember me as the different one, you know, like even though people were, because I exercise in the Netherlands, people, you know, were speaking in Dutch and all the meetings were in Dutch. And I was just supposed to sit there and listen to the Dutch meeting without being able to interfere. But I was just asking questions in English and tried to turn the situation around. And by the end of the meeting, everyone was speaking in English, you know, like, so I think it can be also a very powerful thing to be the one that is different, because if you think of it like the way that other people think of it, it brings you down. But if you're confident with yourself, it can really be a power move or a powerful thing. Um,
Before
so
you move on, I do agree with that. For me, it was you asked me earlier about like what was one of the toughest things for me when I started out, and to be transparent, that probably was to remind
yeah,
myself every room that I walked in, I no longer represented a company. I represented my company, but at the same time, I deserved to be in these rooms. I did the
yeah,
work to get here. I positioned myself for it. So don't go in doubting yourself. At the end of the day, whatever exercises you got to do to build your self confidence, I think that's one of the biggest keys.
yeah,
Also, understanding what eases your apprehension or anxiousness. So like you had like when I walked into meetings, a lot of times I would start making jokes just to get people laughing.
yeah.
But go on.
No, indeed. I mean, it's exactly about that. Like for me, for instance, when I started, I was very not insecure, but I thought that people would have problems to take a business consultant that is a woman instead of a man. So uh, the marketing strategy was about, you know, doing a branding for a company rather than doing a personal branding, because I thought like, okay, people are not going to buy if they know there's a woman behind it, which is stupid, you know, like, but this was my thought at the time. So and that's also why I took two business partners that were men in the first place, because yeah, I thought, okay, if I have men representing the company as well, then it will encourage people to buy. And then of course I learned it the hard way. And yeah, I found out that actually being more personal and being actually works better, because people can feel that you're genuine, right? So There is Dennis that is saying, have you ever had to deal with age discrimination? What did you change?
Age discrimination.
Yeah, like you're too young.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall. I'm sure I have. I just can't really recall a specific moment. As far as me changing anything, I've accepted in this that I can't change the men's hearts. So if you don't want to do business with me because of age discrimination or race discrimination, whatever it may be, that doesn't phase me one bit because there's other people that I have to go pay attention to. That just means that I shouldn't spend too much time caught up in that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
At the same time, I try to let my work speak for me. So a lot of times, as long as that, like, as long as it's not the work, I don't care because other people will gravitate towards the work. As long as you're doing good work. For me, I've had people be apprehensive about doing a project with me, but as long as I can get you to allow me to do the first phase, once you see the work I'm doing and you have a couple conversations with me, then I believe that it starts to ease that apprehension on their end. I hope I
Yeah.
answered that well enough.
Yeah. In any case, I mean, like, if they don't agree to give you a chance, then maybe they're not the right people to work with in the first place. Like, if they don't have the same values and if they don't see potential, then yeah, why insist and why do you need to change, right? Like, that's not the point. For me, I also had age discrimination as well. And like going into meetings and people thinking that I was like the intern when actually I was the project leader. Like, it happens, like especially when you're 25 or 30 and you're already like quite invested in a company's management or business side of things.
I think one other thing for me though is like one of the biggest things I learned is that every dollar is not a good dollar. Every euro is not a good euro. Like if you have a gut feeling going into it, you should probably stick with that. I've gone into meetings for a project and had a bad feeling and actually made the proposal so high thinking they would walk away and they actually accepted it. And so now I'm stuck doing the job, but as I go through it, I can feel that they don't really trust me with the project. They're questioning me about everything. They want to
Yeah.
change this, they want to change that. So a lot of times if it's age discrimination, in my mind it's an omen that this is probably not going to be a good connection.
Yeah.
And you should probably go find a better dollar. But
Yeah, but it's the same with anything. I mean, when I help people, usually the first step is like, what are your values and what is the concept of your company? And so that then when you market it or when you advertise, the only people that will contact you or that will want to do business with you is people that can relate to these values. So that's why it's so important to actually showcase them in the best way. And I'm not talking just about clients. I'm talking also about other engineers that you may work with as well. Like, everybody has to have the same vision of things in order to make a project progress in the right way. And especially for architects, where the project can be like 5 years, 10 years before you finish it, you want to stick with the right people and be able to trust those people in for their intentions and for their work. So definitely, that's why picking those values is so important, and questioning yourself about what kind of problem you're trying to solve for the client is very important. We have quite a few questions. We have Jonas. Jonas is always tuning in every week, I have to say. As a designer, which one is easy to work with, direct clients or contractors? Yeah.
that's an easy answer for me. And it's really contractors. Just because at this point, the contractors that I work with, we have an established relationship, established rapport. They kind of already come in knowing exactly what they want, how they want it built out, materials, things of that nature. So it's really direct. I enjoy working with direct clients, but I have to be cautious of how many I bring on because direct clients require a lot of special attention. A lot of these residential projects I'm doing, they are for direct clients, and there's a lot of changes going on. I may do a phase one for design development, and it may take 3 weeks because they want to change this or see how this looks. I may need to do 2 options to start so they can have multiple ideas, and then I tell them to review both and tell me which elements you like from both so I can combine them if that's what we need to do, things of that nature. So it's a lot more hands-on with direct clients. Contractors kind of tell you what they want and you just push it out.
But is there not like a, I don't know, I've never worked in those phases, but I can imagine that contractors are more tight with money in a way, like, or is it just me saying that?
I can only talk about my personal experience.
Yeah.
The contractors I have dealt with
Yeah.
have been, their companies are far more established than mine.
Yeah.
So for them, they're not as tight. Like they're a well-oiled machine in my mind. They've done so many different commercial projects. They might be doing a little negotiating, but when it's time to cut the check, they're gonna cut the check. Direct
Yeah.
clients, you're dealing with a little, like I'd have some direct clients with a restaurant, and I'm a little apprehensive dealing with them because they're running a whole new business themselves. And a lot of times what happens with direct clients, contractors a lot of times understand the fees that are involved with architecture.
Mhm.
They've dealt with other architectures in the past, so they know they can ballpark figure the hourly rate or the percentage rate. A lot of direct clients don't have a true appreciation for architecture. So they may have a $20,000 budget for construction and a $500 budget for architecture. And so when you send them a proposal, they can be taken aback, or flabbergasted by it because they never even knew that that's what the charge would be, and they don't have
Yeah.
a true appreciation for what we do. That the contractor can't build anything until we've designed it. But go ahead.
Yeah. You're right. I have another one. Can you mark it out if you provide services for a particular client group or you're open to any clients? How did you find to build up a client variety?
I was open to anybody for a long time. For me, I kind of established this rule when I first started out: say yes until you can say no. So anybody that called, I would say yes. Even if I had no experience on that project, I would say yes. I would stay up all night researching that field. What do I need to do to design it? I'd make calls to get consultants if I need to, and I get them on board, and I just figure it out. Now I'm at a point where I can say no to certain clients if that project doesn't look comfortable to me, or their timeline is too fast, or their budget doesn't meet what I say my budget is. Like, you can go find another architect because I know my worth and I know what I have over here. Um, for me, the client variety wasn't hard to build up, and that was strictly because I allowed my work to speak for itself. Word of mouth was so strong for me starting out because I pulled clients from my last firm. But once I did a project for them on my own, they were passing the word along to other contractors or other direct clients, like, hey, new architect I just worked with, if you have a project, here's his number. And I was getting referrals like that, just from doing strong work. And I always tried to under promise and overperform. So if I had something going out, I would tell the client I'll have it to you by Friday, but I'll get it to them by Wednesday at 3 a.m. And when they see that email come in, they're like, oh wow, he's really working. So for me, that's what it was. Just making sure that I treated every client like they were my only client to start, even if I did have 10 projects, so that they were not afraid to pass my name to everybody that they knew.
Yeah,
I
that
hope I
comes.
answered that okay.
Yeah, of course. Like I think I completely agree with you. It's about, I think the difficulty is like for the people that are starting, at least, is like, how do I get the first one to actually, trust me enough to see the work, right? Like, because you're talking about like, the work speaks for itself, but of course, like the first part is like, okay, convince the first guy, right? Um, which is like in itself, it's quite challenging for people. So from that respect, when you start, it is so important to make in what I call indirect leads or partnerships. So if you are an architect, try to pair up with engineers or construction companies or even other architects where you can create a collaboration so that they can introduce you to their past clients or people that they know to grow your network. And it's always better to be introduced by somebody else rather than automatically go to the client and introduce yourself as a starter. And these partnerships can be either people that you worked with previously in other companies you were working for. It can be people that you connect with on LinkedIn. It can be really any company that you think, okay, they have the same values as me, so why not collaborate on some projects? And you can just simply email them to have a Zoom call and see if a collaboration is possible. On the other hand, if you pitch to your first client, once you pitch to him and you have these partnership, you're much more credible to the client straight away. Because the client will be like, okay, but you don't have any references. Like, how do I know that you're the right person? And having those partnerships allows you to say like, okay, these people believe in me, and if you give me the project, they will be on board as well, and they have the right references, to satisfy your questions. So that's a little, added value for the people that are starting.
No, I definitely agree. Some of my biggest clients I got through my mechanical engineer partnerships. I've had consultants that I worked with previously, and so they knew my work. So they were able to pass me to new clients and say, hey, this guy, he's going to get the job done. He's been working with us. So I definitely 100% agree.
Yeah, indeed, because they all know how you worked before, even if you were in a company before. Like, you should never dismiss the experience that you had in companies. When you start, it's not like you start a company and everything is gone. You still have that experience, that those contacts to use. So use them in the right way. The other thing I wanted to discuss with you is, because you said you delivered things quite quickly and stuff. I'm a big preacher of putting boundaries with clients. So when you say I just do the work and deliver it at 3 a.m. For some weird reason, I don't know if you're here, I don't know if it's still live. All right, we are having technical problems, people. Just give me 1 second. If you have any other questions, guys, don't hesitate to comment. I'm more than happy to answer to you. But what I wanted to say about boundaries, because we talked about it last week, was the fact that, simply, sorry, I'm getting a lot of questions and I'm trying to get Zach back on board. So about boundaries, the question that is important is that in the past life, we had quite a few people saying like, okay, how do I charge someone for the work that I've done? Or how far do you take the free... Welcome back.
I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I apologize.
No problem. I was just talking about boundaries with the client because in previous life, we had a lot of people that would do sketch design for free, or did the work, delivered it, and didn't know how to ask for money back. So I would like to know a little bit your input on this as well. How far can you go in that respect, with the boundaries with the client? I know it's a difficult question, but
it's not really difficult. You're probably asking the wrong person, and that's just because I don't really set up boundaries that well. That's a tough one, and I don't do it well because, like I said, I started out and all I said was yes. I always just said yes, and I would stretch myself thin just to make sure that I met the client's needs. But in the long haul, I see how it's paid off. I'm just now in a space 2 years in where I'm able to create boundaries, where I
Mm,
can take a day to respond to an email because I'm out with my family or something, because needing that headspace is important now. But they also recognize I have rapport with them now too. So at this point, they understand if I don't answer, I'll give them a call back as soon as I possibly can. Um, as far as the boundaries, talking about work and payment up front, um, I think you have to figure out what works for you when you start out. For me, I didn't accept deposits or advances for a while. I'm now at the point where no matter what, I'm going to get some type of deposit before I'll come out and see the project. I'll visit the project, measure it up. But before
yeah.
I'm sending you anything, I'm probably going to request a deposit because these are
Mm,
hours I'm putting in and I need to be paid for them. And that alone is going to motivate me to get it back to you sooner. At the same time, before I was receiving or accepting deposits, I would go out and do the work, sketch it up, maybe do the concept development. And when I sent them the concept development, I would already send them an invoice. And
mm,
so now you have your sketches, your concept development, and you know how much it costs. And in order for us to move on to any other step, I need that invoice filled. I
yeah.
think it's not being afraid of establishing yourself or putting your foot down as far as the business side, because it's a service. And at the end of the day, no matter how this client is, or your relationship with the client, they understand that they should understand.
I think we lost Zach again. All right, I'm gonna answer another question in the meantime. Um, so I have Jonas here that is asking, as a designer, sorry, I like cut you off because like you went offline again.
Go ahead, keep going, keep going.
No, I think like you like we need more answers from you from that side as well. Like because it is a big struggle. A lot of people they have problems of confidence to ask for the money. So that's also my question to you. Like, how do you do first a proposal and then do the sketch design and do the invoice, or is it like, okay, I do the work, this is the invoice, we can carry on or not? Like,
It really varies client to client for me. I have some commercial contractors who we never sit down and draw out a contract. We already
yeah,
have an established hourly rate, and we just start on the project. And at the end, we've already, they, here's the invoice. But I also
yeah,
have other clients where if I don't have a lot of rapport, I'm gonna go out to the project, I'm gonna see it. I might give them an estimate around about what I think will be, but when I get back, I'm gonna draw up a physical contract and send it over so they see the numbers before we even get started. I
yeah,
may start on the work, but I'm going to tell them that phase one is this much. I usually try to break it down into phases so they can understand about what's going to be due every invoice or so.
yeah. And
Um,
so with the outcome of it, like what you're gonna submit and the timeline, I guess,
yeah,
right?
the timeline. Phase one will be about 1 week. Phase two, maybe 2 weeks. Phase three of construction documents. That may take me 3 weeks if it's a huge project. Um, and
Yeah, we know you're
this
quick.
is what comes with it.
Like, guys, you don't have to do it in 3 weeks. If you take 5 weeks, it's also fine.
You definitely can. But at the core of it, you have to establish what your time is worth and
Yeah,
stick to it. Like, don't undervalue yourself. At
yeah,
this point, everything you do is a service. Like, so I think you should just you have to, it's hard to switch your brain to start thinking like that, but it's a business. And these people should not be shocked to see you send them an invoice. Um,
yeah.
but one
No,
other thing I always did is that the thing that helped me get over the fear of sending the invoice was to always tell people that I'm open for negotiation. One
mm,
thing about me is that I think my clients always appreciate that I might tell them a fee, but I'd say like, hopefully this is in your budget. If not, give me a call so we can try to come up with something that's in your budget so both of us are comfortable. I don't want either one of us doing business uncomfortable. And I think I'm
Yeah.
capable of doing that because I work for myself. So everything I make is profit. If I had a contract and I said it was 3,000 and they said, well, my budget was 1,500. I say, okay, maybe I can do it for two because at the end of the day, I'm I'm all the profits mine.
Yeah.
So I think in that regard, you do have to be a little bit flexible. And as long as you make them feel comfortable while doing so, most of the time they'll meet you wherever you said you were. So
Yeah, like the essential is to be clear that you want to collaborate with them.
hmm
Um, and you can also take off some tasks of the different phases as well. That's also if you have other people to pay and stuff, and you know you cannot compromise on this, you can definitely negotiate on the tasks and the work that they will have as an outcome of the phase as well. We have Jonas here again. I think this one might be for me. As a designer, being specific is good. Like just design retail shop, saloon, kitchen, or doing everything. You want to answer that? Okay, again.
I mean, I can, I guess. I'm trying to fully understand the question. So,
I think what he means is like, as a designer, do you have to target one specific typology in order to be good?
mm, I don't think you do. Yeah,
You should.
for me, I think one of the things that really aided me in starting my business was the last firm I worked for never focused on one thing. We did a wide variety of projects from gun ranges to restaurants to churches to hotels. So I was able to bounce around and get a lot of experience. So when I got out on my own, I'm able to work on any project and it not overwhelm me because I've seen the way all of them are designed and built.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I think it's better to not be specific. I think it's better to get as much experience in as many different realms as you can because they're only going to aid you. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's about risk assessment as well. So usually when there is crisis like the Corona crisis or the crisis in 2008, most architecture companies that went bankrupt were companies that were very specialized in one specific typology. Whether it's like they were only in private or they were doing only public buildings or whether it was just retail or housing or whatever. So in order to spread the risks, you definitely want to have a variety of designs and have a portfolio that can be applied to any type of client, right? The thing that is important is not really thinking about what typology you're going to look for, is more about what is the problem that you're trying to solve for the client. So if you specialize as an architect for sustainability, sustainability can be applied to any typologies. If your values is about materiality and the use of light and so on, I mean, you can apply that to any typology as well. So it's more to be specific as a designer in your skills and what you're trying to provide the clients more than a specific typology that will get you trapped into one category. One last question. This is quite a long one. As an architect, how do you come across new products? Is it a proactive approach, researching online? Do you wait for people to contact you and give you presentations? A mix of both? Could you kindly elaborate, please?
um, I'll do my best to elaborate. I think it's relative or case by case. Everybody's kind of made up differently. For me, I do a lot of research. I believe that we should be learning every day. So every day I'm trying to read something or research something to enhance my brain. A lot of times it is people contacting me or clients asking me about certain things. I had a client call me last week about doing a project on historic preservation. Never done it before, but stayed up for hours researching it. I clearly need to do some more research, but a lot of times that's how it happens. And once I'm in front of it, I just do a deep dive. I just get sucked into it. So I think it's a mix of both. I just think we have to be curious, not only as architects, entrepreneurs, but as human beings. I think we have to be curious and question why we're doing everything we're doing. Like,
Yeah.
why do we drive on the right side of the road or the left side of the road, depending on where you are? Like, questions down to even the basics of life. So,
And it's also like for people that are starting and that can get scared about certain types of project, like you mentioned, the one where it's a reserved area in a historical area. If you start, just always say yes to, opportunities, and then you can figure it out. Like you can maybe subcontract a specialist or subcontract another architect or a specific engineer, and you will learn with him for that project, so that the next time around you already know what to do, right? So there is a lot of possibilities. There is a lot of solutions as well. Like if you don't feel like taking on that project, there is always an opportunity there to find someone that can help you with it. And maybe you don't get that much money on that project, but at least you get to learn
the
the
experience.
skills. The next time around, like you can definitely go ahead and take it. We have other people saying hello. Jonas saying thank you. I'm also gonna thank you for being here. Thank you for coming on this live. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all your knowledge and sharing your experience as well.
Yes, of course, you don't have to thank me. I hope I've shared or assisted, helped as much as I possibly can. Thank you for having me on here, first and foremost. I've been following you for a few weeks. Thoroughly enjoy what you're doing for our industry. So, yes, anytime I can help or provide any insight or information, I'm more than willing to do so.
Where can people find you?
They can't. I have to find them. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm joking. I don't. I'm not on LinkedIn. Um, I probably need to be. Unfortunately, I just have been so busy working. I'm more focused on the product versus the marketing. But
Yeah.
I have a website, nyatasadesign.com. It's not, still working on some things. But if you need to email me, that's fine. Zach Nyatasa, ZAKNYA at nyatasadesign.com.
Perfect. Thank you.
Nyatasadesign.com. Yes.
I didn't write it all, but
No,
at
you're
least.
fine. Zach Nia. They know the first three letters of my first name, the first three letters of my last name at
Yeah.
nyatasadesign.com.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. For everyone that is here, you can listen to this episode again next week on her podcast channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also directly subscribe. That would be great to help us out. And then you get also notification for new episodes coming up. So I'll see you guys next week again. Thank you, Zach, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.